Next year will mark the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, as well as the 54th anniversary of the restoration of the PRC's lawful seat in the UN. So how would you evaluate China's contributions to the UN's mission over the past 5 decades?
Well, first of all, China has been a very strong supporter of UN activities. China is a pillar of multilateralism, strong supporter of multilateral institutions, of the UN. Now that we are discussing artificial intelligence, China was the first country that said that it's important to have some global platform of governance and that it should be centered in the UN. So there is this very strong commitment of China with multilateralism. And on the other hand, when we see that we spoke about conflicts, we spoke about many other, there is a basic question, and that question is the need to develop much more effectively the poorest countries in the world and the developing countries in general. And that cooperation with China is probably the priority one at that moment, and that is the reason why I'm coming for the China-Africa Summit.
Back to the theme of your visit this time. You have shown strong support for the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, the FORCAC, describing it as a model of South-South cooperation. So how does this cooperation benefit the global stability and prosperity?
Africa is a continent that suffers enormous inequalities and injustices. Many African economies are in a desperate situation, and the international financial system as it exists today is unfair, outdated. It was prepared after the Second World War. It represented a world that no longer exists, and it doesn't support developing countries as they need. We need reforms in the international financial system to make it represent the reality of today's economy and to support Africa. In this context, the cooperation with China is extremely important, because that cooperation allows to provide very meaningful investments that Africa needs, and investments that must be linked to the priorities of Africa, investments that must mean sustainable, investments must have integrity, and I believe this is what President Xi Jinping has announced several times about the characteristics of the cooperation that he wants to have with Africa. At the same time, there is a lot African countries can learn with China, and a lot they can benefit with Chinese investment and Chinese support.
Yeah. The theme of this year's summit of FORCAC is joining hands to advance modernization and build a high-level China-Africa community with a shared future. So what new opportunities could arise for African countries from this collaboration? Any particular aspects do you expect?
I think that China's cooperation with Africa can be extremely important in building modern infrastructure that is green, in supporting the capacity of African countries to fully benefit with the progress of the digital economy. And by the way, it's not by chance that China has presented the resolution in the General Assembly exactly on capacity building for artificial intelligence to the benefit of developing countries. So these are the kind of things that I believe when the word modern is expressed in the title, these are the kind of things that China can enormously help Africa to overcome its difficulties.
There have been concerns about debt sustainability in some African countries with Chinese investments. What collaborative measures do you suggest China and African countries take to promote economic growth while maintaining financial stability?
Investments must be sustainable from the environmental point of view and sustainable from the financial point of view. There are situations in which debt relief is very important. And I know that China has in several situations considered the possibility to extend the time in which countries can pay and to reduce the interest rates. But let's be clear, the African debt problems did not appear because of Chinese cooperation. They are old problems that always existed in the African context. And of course, China, as a country that cooperates with Africa, will, I'm absolutely sure, have a very positive attitude in this regard.
新年好，新春快乐，春节快乐，春节快乐。
Mr. Secretary General, you've shown a great appreciation of Chinese culture, including greeting everyone with 春节快乐 this Lunar Chinese New Year. And could you share a memorable experiences from your visits to China or interactions with Chinese leaders and diplomats that shaped your understanding of Chinese culture and its approach to international relations?
Well, China has a sense of historic patience and strategic thinking. China does not act for tomorrow. China acts taking into account the future. And in international cooperation, this is absolutely vital, because we have so many crises that are the result of this short-time thinking, that the strategic vision of China and its historic patience that China has shown so many times is a fantastic contribution to what we hope will be a much more peaceful world order.
Do you happen to read any books about China or something?
Well, I read many history books about China. I'm a passionate reader of history. History of China is an absolutely fantastic source of things that we need to learn about human nature and about the world, and a very important contribution for my own training as a politician first and as a Secretary General of the United Nations now.
Any particular philosophers you admire?
Well, Confucius is of course the name that everybody talks about, and indeed I think that he has left an imprint that even today is extremely, extremely clear in China and in several other countries of the region.
You first visited this city in 1998 as Prime Minister of Portugal. Do you still remember what aspects of Shanghai that impressed you most at that time?
Well, I have to say that they were starting to build Pudong.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine what it is to come a few years later and all of a sudden to see a complete new city. Shanghai has become very clearly the window of China for the outside, but also a very important center where both culture, science, technology and innovation make it a vibrant city and an absolutely fabulous city. I had the chance to visit an art gallery. I had the chance to visit this scientific center. I had a chance to be in the new train, the magnetic train.
Yeah,
And indeed, Shanghai impresses me enormously as a city that combines the highest technology capacity with simultaneously a very humane nature, and at the same time a city that is open to the world, a city that is the bridge between China and the rest of the world, and a city where the most sophisticated forms of innovation are taking place, and at the same time the cultural diversity of China is fantastically represented.